Hi, and welcome to the third instalment of the Hatstory of Newcastle-under-Lyme. Today I'm going to be finishing off both my hats. I'm going to be adding the inner and outer bands and all the extra embellishments that are needed. You may have noticed that I'm in my living room today, and that is because I'm going to be doing lots of sewing, lots of little fiddly bits. So when I'm hand sewing, I like to be quite comfy, and when I'm machine sewing, I like to have a table that's lower down so I can look over it. Today I'm going to get straight into it because there's a lot of stuff that needs to get done. So I'm going to take the town crier hat, and what I need to do first is iron out the brim so it's nice and flat, and then I'm going to measure it and I'm going to cut it so the brim is the same width the whole way around. So the old hat makers in the hat shops would have had actual brim cutters, which are kind of like rounded lobster claws, and the claw part goes around the crown and then the arm comes out across the brim. You adjust it to the width that you want, and then it's got a razor in it, so you just pull it round and it will cut the brim to the width that you've set it to. But I don't have one of those, so I'm going to use scissors. I'm now going to do the same to the Edwardian wedding hat. I'm going to measure the brim out and cut it. I am going to keep quite a large brim on this, but I just need to make it a lot more even. Before I sew the inner band on the Edwardian wedding hat, I'm actually just going to give it a little bit of a clean up. There's bits of kind of like woolly fluff all over the surface from just where I've been moulding it and working it. So I'm going to get a sander and I'm just going to give it a sand down and get rid of all the excess fluff. So now, although I've put a lot of stiffener in the brim, if you're kind of walking about with it and you knock it, it could still get bent. So what I'm going to do, just to preserve the shape, is use some millinery wire that I'm going to cut to the length of the outside of the brim. I'm going to hand sew it all the way around the outside, and then I'm going to machine sew some ribbon over the top to hide the wire. So somebody told me the other day, and I don't know how valid a fact this is, but it's just one of those things that you hear it and it makes so much sense. They told me that the decline of people wearing big hats, so like hats like this, really, really wide brims, and the really tall top hats and bowler hats, the decline of those matches up with the increase of people buying automobiles, which makes so much sense because you can't get in a car with massive hats on. Like, it's a struggle. I'm now going to do the exact same thing to the town crier hat, attach my millinery wire around the outside of it. This is for a different reason than the wedding hat. So with the wedding hat, it was to kind of hold the brim out. For this, I'm going to be folding the brim upwards to make a tricorn shape, and the wire will bend and hold it in that shape. So I'm back. My sewing machine broke last night and I have fixed it now, but I did end up hand sewing the rest of the trimming on. And to hide my stitches on the other side, I've actually added this, it's like shiny black lace. But we're back on track now, which means more time lapses. First, I'm going to shape the brim now, which is the most exciting bit. I've now got this rounded tricorn shape that I'm really happy with, but it needs a little bit of something extra fancy, and I have just the thing. So I couldn't decide for ages what I wanted to put on the side of the hat, and after chatting to a few people, I decided to do my own coat of arms. I put this image together on Photoshop. It's just kind of collage. It takes the design of the Newcastle clock. There's Staffordshire knots in there. The lions are from one of the most recent Newcastle-under-Lyme coat of arms. And then obviously we have a top hat. And then my partner, Richard Redwin, drew over the top of it on Illustrator and just put it together as a much nicer, neater design. And then my friends at the Purple House Collective used their embroidery machine and embroidered this into a patch for me. So now it looks like this. And I've got it here. And that is my finished town crier tricorn hat. Hear ye, is probably what they would say. So I'm going to move on to the Edwardian wedding hat. So I don't really have a specific plan or design that I'm going to go for with this, but I've got some tulle, I think is how you pronounce it, which is like a mesh material, and I've cut this into some long strips, and I think I'm just going to kind of bunch it up. And I've also got some silk, which I have cut into a long trail and sewn to make it extra long. And I've got some wider mesh, some like veil material, which I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with yet. And I also have lots of bunches of flowers. So in the photos of the Edwardian wedding hats, the crowns were quite dome shaped and quite large. So I'm going to use the tulle to create like a wider crown and kind of pad it out. I think I'm just going to wing it and just start applying it to the outside and pinning it with maybe some white thread.